Okay, good afternoon. Today I'm going to talk about the doomsday button of global economics, and this is stagflation. Stagflation is something you've probably heard this word. We've got all this thing of tariffs, the markets are doing this and that, and every now and then you hear, oh, inflation or those types of words, but then you hear stagflation and it just kind of goes in one ear and out the other. We don't pay a lot of attention to it because it's an extremely rare condition, but it's rare because countries fight like hell to keep it from happening. Well, we're heading there, so I want to talk about that for a minute. What is stagflation? So it's basically when you have a recession and inflation at the same time. So a recession is the economy is stagnant, it's not growing, or it is shrinking. And this is followed by things like high unemployment. So people don't have jobs and we're not building more factories, we don't have any more customers. And then we have inflation, which is kind of the opposite of a recession. It's that when there's a lot of money in the economy, everyone has a job and they're all buying houses, and it's the roaring 20s type things. When there's a lot of money in the economy, you get inflation. So there's a couple of problems that are obvious with this. One is it's nice to have a lot of money, but if it's going to put in a lot of money in the market causes prices to go up, that's not such a good thing. So inflation, we all know that it's a bad thing. And when it comes to a recession, we know that's bad as well. If people start losing their job, they're unemployed, they lay off 10,000 people at that factory shut down, etc. So we all can see the bad part of having a recession as well. So a recession and an inflation are both bad. And when they happen together, we call that stagflation. Now, here's the problem with stagflation. We have these two problems, inflation and a recession together that cause stagflation. So why don't we solve this problem? Well, if we have a recession, we have a way to solve that. If we have inflation, we have a way to solve that. The problem is the solution for each of these throws gas on the other one. So let's talk about that. When you have a recession, so nobody has money, there's a couple of things you can do. We want to get money back in the economy. We want to get the economy stimulated. So you can do things like go out and find, new customers for your products. We can make a trade deal with China or whatever. But the most common way to deal with a recession is to simply lower the interest rates. When you lower the interest rates, your credit card is cheaper, houses become cheaper, companies can buy factory equipment cheaper. So everything's cheaper when uh, the interest rate is lowered. It puts money into the economy. So we just pump money into the economy. One of the ways, if the entire world is in a recession like we were in 2008, the way you get out of the economy is the government spends money. It does deficit spending. It intentionally spends as much money as it needs, even if that's way more than they have. And the reason is if nobody has money, only the government has money, and the government just spends money and goes into debt. But what they're doing is they're desperately trying to get out of a recession, and you do that by pumping money into the economy. That's what we need to know. We get out of a recession by pumping money into the economy, one way or another, interest rates, spending, whatever it takes. So that's how you solve a recession. But how do you solve inflation? Well, you take money out of the economy. All right. You raise interest rates. You make it more expensive to borrow money, more expensive to buy houses, more expensive to buy equipment for your factory. And this is actually a very effective way to lower interest rates. You saw in 2023 and 2024, interest rates were starting to go up and up and up, and inflation dropped and dropped and dropped. Okay, so this is a very effective way to lower inflation. You raise the interest rate to lower inflation and take money out of the economy. So you solve a recession by putting money into the economy. You solve inflation by taking money out of the economy. So if we're going to solve recession, we put money into the economy, inflation takes off. If we're going to solve inflation, we take money out of the economy and the recession gets deeper. So that's the problem with stagflation. When both of these things occur, well, how do you solve them? Because the solution for each makes the other side worse. So now, why do I think we're heading into a stagflation? If I was to write a book on how to cause stagflation, which remember is the worst thing that can happen to a country's economy, stagflation. If I was to write a book about it, page one implement nonsensical tariffs across the board with all of your trading partners in every country in the world, which is exactly what Donald Trump is doing. Okay, he's implemented these huge tariffs around the world, and this is going to cause stagflation. This is why. So when he implements a tariff and I decide I want to buy grapes and they don't grow grapes in California right now because maybe it's not grape season, we go to Brazil and we get their grapes. Well, those grapes are going to cost more now because for some reason we put a tariff on those grapes. Everything that we buy that's made or touched by someone overseas, that's going to be more expensive because Donald Trump put a tariff on it. He acts like this is a tax on the whoever grew those grapes. It's not. It's a tax on whoever buys the grapes in the States. So everything that we buy is going to be more expensive. Now, if he just put a tariff on mayonnaise, Trump said, look, I'm going to fix the economy. I'm going to put a tariff on mayonnaise. That means that mayonnaise would be more expensive, but nothing else would be more expensive. So we wouldn't even really notice it. We might just buy less mayonnaise. But when everything has a tariff on it, everything that's imported, and such a huge amount of what we use on a daily life is imported, he's effectively raised the price on everything. So he's causing inflation with this. Now, what he's also done is he's done this against everybody, including our best trading partners, and they put in counter tariffs. So what this means is they're going to make our goods more expensive in their countries, so their people will buy fewer of our goods. What this means is all of the stuff that we build in the United States and ship overseas is going to be more expensive for everybody else in the world. And when things become more expensive, people buy less and less of it. So the things that we build here that we used to sell overseas, we're not going to do that as much anymore. So our factories are going to shrink and we're going to go into a recession. We will have job losses and we will have a shrinking economy. At the same time, things cost more. So Donald Trump is following the cookbook. This is the cookbook. Well, how many ways are there to cause stagflation? Well, there's one. What Donald Trump just did. Now, that's stagflation. So, stagflation is worse than a recession. Stagflation is worse than inflation. But the worst thing is this entire thing is self-inflicted. None of it needed to be done. Donald Trump, who is possibly the least educated economic president that we've ever seen in this country, initiated all of this. For a president to put in a tariff, all he has to do is declare an economic emergency. Now, remember, I showed in my last video, in October 24, The Economist, the preeminent magazine on the economy in the world, said the United States had the economy that was the envy of the world. Trump got it. He had to have something to campaign on. He calls it a disaster. We have an economic crisis on our hands. So this gives him the authority to put in tariffs. However, Congress, with a simple majority vote, can say, we don't see that. We're taking away your ability to implement tariffs. A simple majority, 50% plus one, can take all of these tariffs away. And what happened? Well, the Republicans run Congress. They're in control of the House. They won't even put it up for a vote. This will not even be put up for a vote. And the reason they don't put it up for a vote is I've got a nice cushy job as a congressman from a district in southern Illinois someplace. And if I vote against Trump on this, he'll call me a name and I'll lose my primary and I'll have to go back to teaching school or whatever I was doing before I became, this freeloading congressman. So this is a Trump-initiated economic situation. It has been backed and supported by the Republican Party. So it is on them. Remember, this is self-inflicted. We did not have to do this. We do not have to do this. We are not in stagflation right now. We will be in a matter of months. That's it for today. Thanks.